Hello. So I was thinking one day, I kind of want to create those fuzzy dice that you hang from your mirror, but I wanted to make them myself, and I got the idea, why don't I try punch needling them? So, I took the journey and the plunge, and I made some. So this is kind of my journey of how I went through that process from start to finish. It's not really a tutorial, it's more of kind of like a create, make with me type of video. Um, they took a really long time. It was definitely a labor of love, but I do think they came out cute. They came out a little bit bigger than I initially wanted them to, but they came out like the normal size, and I kind of wanted them to be a little bit smaller, so I don't think I'll actually use them in my car because they're so big, and I don't want them to swing around and hit me in the face when I'm turning the corner. But they're cute. I'll find somewhere for them. I love the way they came out. They are one of my favorite colors, purple, and yeah, so if you want to see that process, make your own. Let me know how they came out. I really could have gone to the store or thrifted some material, but I really wanted to try out punch needle. Um, Definitely not the most time efficient way to make these, but they came out pretty good. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for creating. So here are some supplies that I used. Right here I'm just taping down my pattern, and I'm going to trace it out using a Sharpie. All traced. I already punched one side to start, and I started the other side, but this is what it looks like traced. And then I'm just gonna punch my little heart out. Punch, punch, punch. I started with the black heart, and I recommend that you do this too. Instead of punching everything all at once, I suggest punching your hearts, then shaping them, and then punching your main color. And this will be far easier to shape than doing it all at once. Trust me, I did it 2 different ways, and this way is far superior. And here I am continuing to punch the hearts. Just to preface, this is not my first time punch needling. I have punch needled quite a few things in the past, so but I think this is a pretty good beginner friendly if you know how to sew. But I did already have all my materials on hand. I didn't buy not a single thing except for one thing, which I regret, and I'll show you soon. And here I am just snipping off the ends. You want to snip as you go, kind of keep it clean. And before you do this part, I suggest shaping those hearts. But here we are on to the second color. And we're just gonna keep punching, punching, punching as we have been. Like I said, this is a labor of love. It took me, I want to say, probably 2 weeks. I didn't work on it a bunch every day, but quite a few hours, so it is very time consuming. You know if you've done punch needle before by hand, and especially what's very time consuming is the cutting and the shaping, which will come soon because I have to do it by hand. I don't have like shears that can cut the loop pile. I had to do it by hand, so just be aware if you're gonna try this out. Your hands will hurt a little bit, but it's fun. And I will have this listed somewhere in my materials, but the yarn I used, I believe, is all Red Heart Super Saver yarn that I buy at Joann, so it's very affordable yarn, just FYI. if you wanted to try this out, that's a good yarn option. And I did make my punch needle frame myself with a picture frame from a canvas, and I hammered some needles. And this thing that you see me punching on is like an art canvas that holds it so you paint, that's like flipped upside down. It's like a table canvas holder, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. And here it is, and then we're gonna clean this up and cut it up. And this is just the back view of punch needling. So this is what it looks like on the side, the working side, and you can decide which side you like best, but in this case we're making fuzzy dice, so we want the loop pile to be showing on the outside. So this side does not have to be perfect. And here it is completed. Here we have the one with the loop pile that we still need to cut. And this side I did previously. And this is the side that I carved the hearts before punching the purple. And as you can see, it has that fuzzy texture, and that's because I cut all those loops. And that's what gives us this fuzzy effect. So here we got our snippers, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So this is real time here. I obviously was trying to get the shot too, so I couldn't just focus all the way, but it is a very slow process and you want some good light for this as well. But this is what took a very long time. And this is the finished result after only cutting all the loops. So it's fuzzy, so now we have to carve it out so that the hearts are more defined and don't just look like little black blobs. And this tool here is what I regret buying. I bought it at Michael's with a coupon, half off. Do not recommend it. I recommend these. These are way better. I also bought these at Michael's, and they hurt your hand a little less than using normal scissors. So if you can find yourself some good snippers, get them. So here I am just kind of cleaning it up. I was testing this out. I'd never used them before. Don't think they're worth it at all, but it did kind of help clean up the top layer. They are advertised as carving shears, so I thought, you know, hey, this will help my fingers not be dead. So I tried and I tried, but it just wasn't as good as just using the scissors, the little snippers. They're not small enough, so they didn't do what I wanted them to. So I switched to the snippers, which worked a whole lot better, very precise. And you can see me struggle a little bit here. This is what I was mentioning and why I recommend carving out your hearts before punching your second main color, because it's a little harder to define it and get around that purple color, as you can see here. But you know, I did it. And here's the aftermath. Some people use lint rollers, some people use vacuums, but I don't think I had put the rug glue on the back yet, so I just used some packing tape and stuck those suckers up to kind of clean it up, so as much as I possibly could. And this is why this one has more of like a little darker purple to it, because I carved the hearts after punching the purple. So here's my first one, much more defined, and this is where I did the hearts first, and then this is the second one where I did the hearts and the purple all at the same time. And then I just slap some rug glue on the back of them to keep them in place. And then on to the next part, which is a backing and sewing. So we're going to remove it from the frame. Don't judge me, this is all I had to take these staples out. And then we're gonna carefully remove it from these nails. And then I flip it over and I'm going to draw out some little flaps to cut out, and these are going to be the flaps that I'm going to be sewing together. So here's a close-up, and I actually ended up putting one on every side of every square. So like this here, and then I just cut them out. Then I got an old t-shirt, traced that out 2 times. There's my trace pattern, and then I cut those out, and then flipped it over, lined it up, and then I just pressed them. You don't need to glue it on because the rug glue is still tacky, so you can just kind of press it on. And then here I am hot gluing the flaps together because those do not have rug glue, and I just wanted to make sure it was secure. And I just wanted to quickly mention the reason for the fabric backing is for when we're sewing, that the needle and thread have something to grab other than the monk's cloth, which is kind of basically just a bunch of holes and kind of pulls apart and frays easily. So you definitely want to add a layer of cloth to the back and the flaps. And after I attach the backing to both dies, now I cut a piece of yarn probably about 4 inches. I tied a knot in it so that there's a loop, and this is going to be sticking out of the corner so that I can affix a string to it. So we're going to hot glue this to a corner. To keep it in place, we're going to glue it down a lot more. And this is going to be on the inside, but the loop is going to be on the outside. And after we sew it along these flaps, your loop should stick out like this. So here we have our loop, and now it's time to sew. And I got out my needle and thread and a thimble because the rug glue, some of it is on the flaps, so it's going to be a little bit harder. First I moved all of the yarn out of the way as best I could, pinned it in place, and then I started hand sewing in just a normal straight stitch. I believe that's what it's called, I'm not 100% sure, but it's just a basic stitch. And just like that, we have one side joined, and this is what it'll look like. And now it's time to sew up the rest. So here it is. I left all but one open, and that's because we're gonna flip it inside out and stuff it. And this was a little bit hard, so I kind of did it off camera. You just gotta maneuver it, just be gentle. And I stuffed my dice with leftover fabric, t-shirt fabric, and yarn scraps. So don't throw away your yarn scraps, keep them in a bag from all your projects if you crochet or knit, because they're really good to stuff things with. And that's what I stuffed both my dice with, actually, is a bunch of yarn scraps. And lastly, we just gotta sew up this last edge. I hand sewed it. I do not know what this is called, but it's kind of like a hidden seam where you go from side to side and you kind of like backstitch. I don't know what it's called, I'm sorry. I will try to figure it out and list it somewhere, but I think it's quite a common stitch. And here are our dice. They roll perfectly, gigantic dice. And all that's left is to make the string and connect them to our loops. So for my string, I wanted to crochet just a row of chain stitches. This is just based on the desired length that you want yours to be. I just guesstimated mine. I don't even think I measured it, but my car kind of has a lot of room from the ceiling to the dash, so mine is kind of long, and I just, kept going, slip stitched it into each loop, and then I cut the yarn, and then I tied a couple knots on each side, and then I cut the extra yarn. And here I just wanted to be a little extra. I marked off, because I wanted them to sit at an angle, not directly at the same height. I marked where I wanted those to go, and I put one jump ring on one side, and on the other side I put a jump ring attached to a lobster clasp so that I can clasp it in place. And a good thing about doing the chains is I can also clasp it to any of those chains if I wanted to adjust. And here's how it works. A little clasp, and we're done. So these are my glorious dice that I made, my hanging dice. I did make it so that they could kind of, one hangs lower than the other, because I didn't really like how they sit like this normally. It's more aesthetically pleasing for me to see them hanging like this. And as you saw, I made this kind of clip situation, but I kind of guesstimated on the length. I didn't want them to be too short, because initially I was going to put them in my car, but I didn't want them right here because they're huge. Well, I guess they're like the standard size. So here they are. One of them does look a little bit darker than the other one, just because I made them a little bit differently. So this one was the first one I made, and I punched the black first, and then I used the scissors to shape, which I wish I would have done this for the second one, but I wanted to see if I could just do it all at once. So I punched the black and then the purple, and I shaped them all at the same time, which was a little bit more of a pain. So if you're going to do it, I suggest shaping your yarn before you start your next color. So whatever you make your numbers, punch all those first, then cut and shape them, and then punch your other main color. And that's going to be a whole lot easier because you have to kind of push this color out of the way to really get in there. And they're just not as defined as these ones, but they still came out pretty good. Definitely wear a mask. That will help all the fibers not go into your throat and nose. And I wear glasses, so that kind of helped too. But yeah, this is them. They're not the best. Some parts there's like a little bit of missing there. I don't know if you can see if it will focus. So what I did was I just chopped up some yarn and hot glued it to the areas that were a little bit more bald. And I wasn't super thorough, so there's still a little bit, but they're not very noticeable. But here are my dies. Aren't they cute? Well, that's it. And thanks for watching, tuning in, and see you next time. Bye.